Today, we're continuing this series that we've been in for the past now 3 weeks. Today is our fourth Sunday, talking about the importance of living life at a healthy pace. And just a healthy, sustainable pace is so important because that's what keeps you from finding yourself in burnout, which in our country today, which has been termed as a culture of burnout, we know this is a big problem. And I believe this is something we all can relate to because we've all possibly been through seasons of burnout. Some of us possibly feel like you're on the brink of burnout, and maybe even some of you today would even say you're in the middle of it, that you feel that you're just you've passed that tipping point and you're stuck in burnout. And so today I want to continue talking to you about a healthy pace, and I'll begin by telling you a story that happened back in 1986 over in Italy. And what happened is that the McDonald's Corporation, Mickey D's, possibly is how you think of them like I do, they had made an announcement that they were going to build a massive new restaurant in this community in Italy. And I say massive because that's the best word to use to describe it, because the McDonald's they were going to build would seat over 450 people. Now, can you imagine them plopping a 450-seat McDonald's in your community? Yeah, exactly. That is a mammoth of a facility. And so due to this, a lot of people in that community, they got upset about it and they began to protest and to push back. And these were just residents as well as elected officials on this idea where McDonald's wanted to do this. Now, in the midst of all this chaos, there was this guy, his name was Carlo Petrini, who was a seasoned activist and a journalist. And what he decided to do was to organize a movement against McDonald's. And he cleverly called it slow food. Slow food. This is what he called it. And what you see here is a picture of people pouring out into the streets under the banner of slow food, protesting against McDonald's. Now, what he did is Carlo went out and he wrote a manifesto. And I want to read with you just a couple of sections from that. Look at this first section with me. He said, against those, or rather the vast majority, who confuse efficiency with frenzy, we propose the vaccine of an adequate portion of sensual, gourmandized pleasures to be taken with slow and prolonged enjoyment. Now, I don't know about you, but he had me at this point when he's talking about sensual, gourmandized pleasures. Anyone else? Anyone else a foodie like I am? Yeah, you start doing that, it's like, sign me up. I'm all for some yummy food. But it's interesting how he called it a vaccine. A vaccine to try to cure or to stop something. He added another section I'll show you where he said this, appropriately, we will start in the kitchen with slow food to escape the tediousness of fast food. Let us rediscover the rich varieties and aromas of local cuisines. Now, what's interesting about this is that this one local chapter expanded to many chapters across Italy, and to this day, there are local chapters across 160 countries. So this thing took off. So what happened, though, is that you had two messages that were in contrast to one another. The fast food message by McDonald's was that we need to build this huge facility to allow more people to eat food faster so that they can have a better quality of life. That's really what they're saying, is that you don't need to have food slow you down. You need to be able to do it quickly and move on. But the slow food message, they pushed back on that and said, no. By you doing this, you're actually taking something away from us, and it is not worth the cost. Now, after all this was stirred up, one of the mayors of a local community there, he had some reflections as he looked back on this movement. And it's interesting. I found it interesting what he had to say. Look at what he said. He said, the slow movement was first seen as an idea for a few people who like to eat and drink well. But now it has become a much broader cultural discussion about the benefits of doing things in a more human, less frenetic manner. So what started with food ended up becoming a discussion around life at large. This actually led to other types of discussions around what they call slow cities, slow medicine, slow schooling, and these types of thoughts. And what people began to come around was this idea of, okay, hold on, there is this pace that is human. And once you exceed that pace, you actually become less human. And is it worth it? And guys, as I've been thinking about this situation and what happened back in the 80s, of course, life today, by comparison, is at a speed of light versus then it would look like a snail's pace does today. But as I've been thinking about it, I've been thinking about this belief that's sown in through the, if you will, the fabric of our culture. And the statement or the belief is that when you speed life up, you're able to squeeze more good things into your life and make your life better. But that's really what we're told over and over and over again. We just need to keep getting faster and faster and more efficient and all these things. But what I've been really thinking about and really questioning is that true? Is it true that as you speed your life up, you can squeeze more good things into it? Or is possibly the opposite true, that the more you speed up your life, the most important things get squeezed out of your life? That you live a life more at the surface and you miss out on the depths and the richness of the best blessings in your life? Well, of course, you can probably tell, given I'm teaching this series, that I believe the latter. Personally, I believe that the faster we get in life, the more inhuman we're becoming, and we are missing out on what is really the blessings and the riches of life. Now, today, what I want to talk to you about specifically that I have noticed is that this speed that we're operating at, this pace that we're operating at, has a cost. And specifically, I want to talk about what it's costing us in our homes, in our marriages, and with our families, the pace that we're living our lives at. And as I thought about the best way to maybe illustrate the way I see it, I thought, well, I think this picture that we'll look at together captures it, a flickering light bulb. Now, we all know that a light bulb, when it's operating as it's supposed to, it will emit light and it will light up a room. But once it begins to flicker, what it's signaling to us is that it is about to the point of breaking. It's about ready to burn out. And when I think about families today, and just where the state of a lot of homes and marriages and family lives are, to me, a lot of them look like flickering light bulbs. Now, I'm not saying that only based off anecdotal evidence from the counseling that I do, family and marriage counseling, but also through research that's being performed in our country. Because every year, researchers go out and through control groups, they go out and they collect information and focus groups as well as through surveys, and they are wanting to find out, how are families doing? And what they're finding, the data is telling us, is quite startling. One of the things they're finding is that on average, families say that they spend 37 minutes of quality time together every day. 37 minutes, that's it. So out of 168 hours that we're together in a week, a little over 6 hours of quality time is all, on average, that we're spending together as families. Now, a lot of that time is actually being made up on the weekend. So as you can see, 37 minutes a day over the 5-day work week, that's not a lot of time. So it's this grind that a lot of us are in. And so then they follow that up and they say, okay, so what's getting in the way of you spending more quality time with your spouse or more quality time as a family? Because no one feels that 37 minutes a day is accurate or adequate. And what people come back with as well, first and foremost, is the demands of their job. That's a big one. It's also their kids' schooling, activities, errands, and then lastly, what they point at is another big one, is technology. That technology is really a problem. Specifically, they point to social media and these little, what we call phones, that are really just mini computers we carry around in our pockets, that we're becoming like zombies doing this when we're all sitting across from each other at restaurants, kids and adults alike. We do this in our homes when we're next to each other on the couches, as well as all the content that's being produced and put on the screens for us, that technology is also taking a lot of our time from one another. And so this is not good, because as this happens and we're not spending time together, it's affecting everyone. So kids are getting leftovers from their parents, spouses are getting leftovers from one another, that everyone's getting scraps and leftovers from time. And it is showing up in the results. Children and students today, more and more, are lonely. And they express this in different ways, but they do so by acting out. They do this through trying to find connection online, and many times that gets into other issues. But we also see this, sadly, in a lot of marriages. That a lot of parents, husbands and wives, that as they get pulled and they're living at such a pace where they're not having time together, they begin to settle in this place of coexisting. The romance goes away. They may sleep together in the same bed, but emotionally they're miles apart from one another. And as time goes on, then in 50% or so of the cases, someone says, I'm done. I've hit my limit. I'm done. They file for divorce. And the number one reason that's cited today is that we grew apart. Guys, this is a problem. Wouldn't you agree? This is a major, major problem. And what I know is true is that when we think about this, we've all been affected in some way, whether it's friends or family, whether it's us personally, but none of us probably feel our home life is where it needs to be, including myself. And so we can be frustrated, but also it's painful. And many times the frustration that we deal with is, okay, I don't know how to get started. I don't know where to start. What do I do to get this back on track? And so this morning, what I want to try to do is walk you through as clearly as I can something that God's been showing me that is underneath a lot of this issue we're having with our pace. And we're not going to look at time management techniques, okay? Because this is not a time management problem, I assure you. Not to say we can't get better, but that's just tweaks. We need a lot more than that, given what's going on. But today what we're going to look at is a teaching by Jesus. And the reason why is because I firmly believe that what we looked at last Sunday, what Jesus had to say about life, is that we all live lives based on what's going on in our hearts, our spiritual hearts. That what we think, what we say, what we do is an expression of what's going on at the deepest level of who we are. We express life from our hearts, and that includes our pace in our lives. And so I want to walk you through one of his most well-known teachings. It's in Matthew's Gospel. If you want to follow along, we're going to be in Matthew chapter 6. And before we jump in, I want to just tell you that this entire sermon that Jesus taught, and this is known as the Sermon on the Mount, it's the lengthiest sermon we have recorded by Jesus in the Gospels. The theme of it was all about human flourishing. So Jesus, as the Son of God from the heavens, who was flourishing in his life, was sharing with all these other human beings how that they were meant, as we all are, to live life in this world that God created for us to exist in and live with him. And so what he was saying is that as you bring your life into alignment with God, you will flourish in life. And so it's with that, I want to show you what Jesus says in Matthew chapter 6, beginning in verse 25. He said, "Therefore I tell you, don't worry about your life, what you will eat or what you will drink, or about your body, what you will wear. Isn't life more than food and the body more than clothing?" Okay, so let's pause there for a minute. Every one of you have likely read and heard these words about worry by Jesus many times, haven't you? Now, something I find kind of funny is that in the past, all the times that pretty much every time I teach this, after the fact, I have two groups of people that approach me with two very different responses. There's one group that approaches me and they'll say, "Thank you so much for preaching on that, teaching on that. I needed that so much today. I'm right in the middle of it. I worry all the time. I'm a worry wart. I've got anxiety problems, on and on and on. So thank you." And honestly, I'm always thrilled that that's the case. And it's every time we look at this passage, every time. So there's one group that really identifies and is grateful. There's another group that approaches me and they'll say, "Hey, thank you so much for speaking on that. Now, I don't worry. I don't really worry about anything. But all these people that do worry, they drive me crazy. And so hopefully by you speaking to this, it helps them not do that as much, so they quit driving me crazy, okay?" And as you could probably guess, that's usually husband and wife that are talking about each other. That's how this oftentimes fleshes out. But here's what you need to know about what Jesus is doing here. Jesus was speaking to everyone. And the reason why this is important is because in our day today, we tend to think of worry in one particular way that is a very different definition than what Jesus was speaking from. That worry, properly understood, as Jesus saw it, is true about all of us. Now, as I have tried to just go, okay, how do I best explain this? I think I figured out a way to explain it where every one of you will see, yeah, we all deal with this. And it's to use an acronym that we are all familiar with today, and it's the acronym FOMO. FOMO, fear of missing out. Jesus, when he spoke to worry, was speaking more with this idea in mind, not as we think of it as it is being diagnosed today as a disorder. He's speaking of FOMO, the fear of missing out. Now, Jesus, when he thought of life, and the vision he had of life, when he would speak, he saw that life could be lived one of two ways. The way we are meant to live life, the way he saw it and the way he talked about it, is that we should see ourselves as children, sons and daughters of God, like little kids that are to walk with God, holding his hand, if you will, like a little child holds their parent's hand, looking to your Heavenly Father, looking for direction and pace in life while trusting Him to lead you where you need to go at the pace you need to walk and to live your life, while trusting Him to provide for you and protect you. So this is the way we are meant to live life, like children walking with our dad. But the other way you can live life, and what he's speaking to here, is as you're walking with your dad, FOMO looks like a little child that starts looking around at all these things that they want. And they say, I want that, I want that, I want that. I don't want to miss out on that, I want to miss out on that. That'll make my life better. And you look to your pops, and your pops is going, no, that's not best for you. We're not going there. You don't need that. And what a child that has FOMO will do is let go of their father's hand and run off and go do what they want to do. Are you tracking with me? This is the vision of what Jesus is saying. So when he says, do not worry, and he talks about all these things, he is painting this picture of letting go of your father's hand and you going and doing whatever you want to do, not wanting to miss out on opportunities and experiences and wealth and you name it, okay? That's what he's speaking to. And after he makes that point, he then goes on to add something to consider. Verse 26, consider the birds of the sky. They don't sow or reap or gather into barns, yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Aren't you worth more than they? Can any of you add 1 moment to his lifespan by worrying? And why do you worry about clothes? Observe how the wildflowers of the field grow. They don't labor or spin thread. Yet I tell you that not even Solomon in all his splendor was adorned like one of these. If that's how God clothes the grass of the field, which is here today and thrown into the furnace tomorrow, won't he do much more for you, you of little faith? So what he begins doing is he points to nature. And he points to the birds, and he points to the wildflowers. And it's kind of funny what he's doing here, because what he's making a point of is that when you look at the birds and you look at the flowers, you see no trace of FOMO, do you? You don't see birds trying to stockpile food. You don't see flowers stressed over making themselves look beautiful. No, you don't see that. What you see is that they exist, and they exist because God created them. And it is God's responsibility to feed the birds as well as to make the flowers look pretty. They just exist, and it's God's responsibility to do those things with them and for them. And as he's making this point, he's asking questions to people. Now, as God's kids, as his sons and his daughters, do you not think that he who created you and loves you, that he won't do the same for you? If he'll do it for the birds and he'll do it for the flowers, don't you believe he'll do it for you? And then he asked another question to consider. And this is about our own abilities. He wants for all of us to consider our power when we worry. That if we were to take all of our energy and muster up as much as we can, our worry powers, and worry about trying to extend our life for an additional moment, does it work? And the obvious answer is no. If anything, if you worry a lot, you're going to shorten your life. Isn't that true? You're just going to stress yourself the heck out, and you're probably going to meet your maker before you would otherwise. But that's his point. His point is, you could worry and worry and worry. You're not going to add a second, a moment to your life. It's a waste of energy. It's a waste of time. And then at the very end, he says, "Oh, you of little faith." What he is getting at is that this is not a problem with God. FOMO is not a problem with God. Worry is not a problem with God. It's a problem with us. It's a faith issue. We just don't trust him. We let go of his hand, and we want to go do our own thing. And so what we're doing is we're setting the direction and pace for our lives instead of trusting our Creator to do that. And then after he speaks to that, he closes with this. Verse 31, "So don't worry, saying, what will we eat, or what will we drink, or what will we wear? For the Gentiles eagerly seek all these things, and your heavenly Father knows that you need them. But seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be provided for you. Therefore, don't worry about tomorrow, because tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own." When he closes, what he is appealing to everyone to do, in essence, is to approach life and live life the way he lived his life. You see, Jesus, as the Son of God, was flourishing. His soul was at rest. His life was at peace. He was living his life in this way because he fully trusted his Father in heaven. There was not a trace of FOMO in his life. He didn't pull away from his father. But because he knew his father loved him so much and he could trust him to provide for him, every day Jesus would give his life to his father, for his father to do in him and through him whatever he wanted to do. And what Jesus was getting at is do this. Do this. Live your life this way. But he also said something else that we don't give a lot of attention to. What he said to them is he said, when you aren't living like this, which is human, the way humans are meant to live life, and you're living out of FOMO, you're living like a Gentile. In other words, you're living like a pagan. You're living in today's world what we would call like a Christian atheist. You say you love God, you say you trust God, you say you believe in God, but when it comes to actually holding his hand, walking with him, letting him set the pace and direction for your life, you don't do that. You go off and you pursue what you want to do out of FOMO. And he's saying, you're living like a pagan. And he's saying, you don't want to do that, because the only way to live life and flourish and have rest in your soul is to live life holding your Father's hand and walking with him. So you may be thinking or maybe asking the question, what does this have to do with the state of my home? How is this affecting my marriage? How is this affecting my relationships with my kids and our time? And I'll just tell you guys, it has everything to do with it. And the reason why I say that is because when you give in to FOMO, FOMO never leads you to rest, does it? FOMO leads to more FOMO, that leads to more FOMO, that leads to more FOMO. So you begin to live your life at the pace of FOMO, which is never at rest. It's always the fear of missing out and wanting more and going after this and going after that and all that. And in this world that we live in today, everything in our society and everything in culture is telling us that we need to speed up. Our jobs that we have, the companies we work for, the companies that we lead, everything that we hear through culture. And what this speaks to is the fact that we all have FOMO in our hearts that we wrestle with, and we live in a FOMO world. Everything's about creating this experience of fear of missing out. So it has everything to do with it. So our pace in life, our direction in life is by and large being set by FOMO, not by God. But here's the reward of looking to God and doing what Jesus said, is that when you walk with God, he is not going to lead you in a direction or lead you to live your life at a pace that squeezes your spouse out or your kids out and your family time out. He's not going to do that. He's not going to lead you to squeeze them out to where they're getting leftovers and scraps from you and you from them. He's going to lead you to value and love them as the closest human relationships you were to have in this life the most, to where you give your best to your family and not your best to your job and your scraps to your kids and your spouse. This is what God does. Now, I can identify with this, and I'll tell you a short story that this was probably 10 plus years ago. And this was in a busy, very busy season of my life, and still is a busy season today. But in a very, very busy season of my life, I was on the interstate one day. I was driving out to East Memphis for a number of appointments that I had, and it was just booked solid with appointments. And at the time, my kids were all younger and probably maybe high school and down, middle school and down, and middle school and down. And I was driving out to East Memphis, and I began to just pray and talk to God and just say, Father, I got all these plates I'm spinning in the air. I feel all this pressure. I have all this stuff on me, and I'm just really struggling. Will you give me wisdom? And really what I was asking for was for him to give me strength and wisdom on how to just somehow strategically knock out all these things I needed to knock out better than what I was. But he gave me wisdom, but it wasn't wisdom that I really saw coming. What he pointed out to me was that I had all these blessings in my life. The blessing of my health, the blessing of Melissa, was my wife, my kids, all these blessings. And instead of me enjoying my blessings, I was actually stressed over my blessings. Have you ever been there before where you were stressed over your blessings? So you find yourself praying and somewhat complaining over blessings in your life instead of enjoying them? Anyway, that's what I was doing. It was dumb. And when I saw that, I thought, okay, yeah, this is ridiculous. And what he began to show me is that, Jonathan, you are living at an unsustainable, unhealthy pace. And it's because I'm not directing it. You're doing it. You're saying yes to everyone. You're taking on all these things. You feel like it's up to you. You're trying to do all these things. It's unsustainable and unhealthy. And that's why you feel that even the blessings in your life are stressors. And so what you need to do is you need to change the way you're approaching your day and the way you're approaching your life. And so there were two main things that he began to work on me about then that he still having to remind me of today. And I'll tell you what those two things are. The first thing he showed me is that you have to get ahead of FOMO every morning before you start your day. You have to get ahead of it because it's coming for all of us. Because again, we have it in our hearts. It's all in our culture and our world around us. And the way you get ahead of FOMO is you do exactly what Jesus did when he was in his life. Is what Jesus would do, and we see this in the Gospels, is that early in the morning, he would get off to a place alone with God, with his Father. And he would just spend time in prayer with his Heavenly Father. And he would give him his life. And the same is true for us, that today what we need to do, first and foremost, to get ahead of FOMO, is to begin your day getting alone with your Father. And as Jesus taught in the Lord's Prayer, where he said, you pray like this: my Father in heaven, hallowed be your name, your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. That what we're to do is start off the day saying to our Heavenly Father, forgive me for my selfish desires. Forgive me from wanting to let go of your hand and walk off and go do my own thing. I don't want to do that today. So I need you to just direct me. I want to give you everything and for you to do in me and through me whatever you want to do. And so you get ahead of FOMO by surrendering your life to God. Here's the second thing he showed me. He showed me I needed to pay attention to what's going on in my heart and begin to pick up on the signals of FOMO when it begins to pull at my heart. Signals for me, this is the way I would describe it, oftentimes feel like if I don't do this, then this will happen or not happen. That's fear. Or if I don't go and pursue this thing, or if I don't take advantage of that, or if I don't strike while the iron's hot, then I'm going to miss out. And what I've learned is that when I begin to feel that tension inside of me, that I need to just stop and I need to have a conversation with my Father and say, Father, is that you or is that FOMO? Is that you by the Spirit within me saying, this is something I want for you to do and it is an important thing, or this is something that I am wanting to do on my own, where I'm wanting to let go of your hand and because of fear, I want to go do it my way. And oftentimes what I'll find is that it's a mix. That there is a FOMO mixed with maybe what God's telling me. And you have to pray through that and process through it. But I can say this, that every time I really just pause and pray and be just raw and authentic with God, he does lead me on what to do. And he gives me a peace. But at the end of the day, that's me just holding on to my Father's hand going, is this me trying to pull away? Or is that you tell me to go here? What do you want me to do? And then he will continue to clear that up for me. So as I get ready to close today, I want to ask you just a question to consider. As you think about your life right now, the direction of your life, the pace of your life, would you say that you believe God is the one directing you? That God is the one setting your pace? That you're walking with him, holding his hand? Or if you're just honest with yourself, would you say that it's really the fear of missing out? That you've bought into this cultural lie, and really even the lie that we have that we all wrestle with in our flesh, that it's these things out here, more of this, more of that, getting this that will lead me to rest, and I have to go after that, versus God, I'm going to rest in you and just walk with you and trust you to give me what you know I need. Which one is true of you? FOMO or God? And if you're like me, you're probably, especially if this is new to you, you're probably going to see most of it is FOMO, if you're honest. Now, you're going to want to argue with God and convince him this is what he wants for you, okay? This is what we do. We play these games with God. Oh, no, God, I know you want me to be happy. You want me to blah, 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 and this is what will make me happy. No, that's not how this works. That's you, again, trying to convince God of something. And by the way, God does not get snookered into supporting you when you try to play these games with him, okay? He's God, right? But really, this is where a lot of us are. But over time, the key is you start with being raw and real with God, and you begin to put these rhythms into your life where every day you get along with him, You give your life to him. You say, I trust you, but help me trust you more. Forgive me my selfish desires. And then you walk with him. And along the day, as you begin to experience FOMO, you begin to just give it back. Talk to God about it. And as you do this, increasingly, you'll find that you'll begin to experience the peace and rest that you long for. You'll begin to see that certain things that are pulling you away from your family, pulling you away from and feeling like I can't and I wish I could, that those things begin to change a lot. The emotional pull on you will get to become a lot less, and you'll begin to see, no, I love my wife, or I love my husband, and I love my babies, and I want to spend time with them because I do not get enough time with them. It's the most important investment you can make in your relationships.